there's two things that you need to know about Returnal. First thing is that the game is fucking sick, and if you have the capability to do so, you should get this game, pronto. The second thing is that regarding the criticisms of checkpoints and save systems from games journalists, they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. We're going to break down both of these. Now, right when you boot up the game, it's immediately going to look like you're going to be playing something akin to Gears of War or Uncharted as far as the perspective goes from the camera, but in all honesty, it plays more akin to Metroid, Doom, or Fury, in that it's very fast-paced, almost arcade-like in the way that it moves and controls. Extremely responsive, and very, very fun. So the game starts off relatively small scale with you just having a starting pistol, but as you go along, you unlock more and more weapons that remain as permanent unlocks for future runs, and all of the weapons are fantastic. See, progress in this game is not based on what your current build is, but what your potential future builds will be. Any weapon that you unlock as you go forward will have traits that are associated with them that will only become available on the weapon after you perform enough kills with that particular weapon. And these will be available for future guns if you just unlock it once. And since later guns can have multiple skills on top of them, as well as having stronger variants of those skills that you unlock at higher levels of difficulty, you can get a lot of particularly fun and broken combinations the further that you go. The visuals and performance of this game are completely nailed. It's very, very pretty to look at. The actual art design for the enemies is interesting and varied, and the performance is fantastic as well, never dipping below 60 outside of very, very rare instances between some areas, and almost no loading screens outside the initial stardom menus. If you couldn't tell from the footage up to this point, this game is bullet hell as fuck, which is surprising and occasionally rare for a third-person shooter. The last time I'd seen anything like this was in Nier, which isn't even technically a shooter in the first place. This is the type of game that's going to reward consistency and exploration, and it encourages experimentation, while making clear that it will not hold your hand during any of this. There are several items in the game that will give you a debuff if you pick them up, or if you happen to have poor chance upon picking up other items. These can be anywhere from parasites, which will give you a benefit and a negative effect, or you can get a malfunction, which is a global debuff that only goes away when you fulfill a certain condition, such as defeating a certain number of enemies or opening a certain number of chests. The exploration is rewarded by giving you more experience from additional combat encounters, as well as giving you access to more loot, which can be artifacts that give you buffs or additional weapon choices, which may be a better weapon or a better stat for the weapon that you have. And the consistency reward comes from adrenaline, a meter that's going to fill up the more kills that you get, and will stay active as long as you avoid taking damage. And all of these buffs stack on one another, meaning that if you go through this game and not make mistakes, you are going to be consistently rewarded with high damage and survivability. This is further carried on with the active reload system, which is very satisfying to pull off repeatedly. Some weapons or abilities have particularly good synergy with the active reload system, to the point where you are encouraged to reload more often in order to get these benefits. I made this particular weapon sweep an entire room by keeping getting beat with We Will Rock You by Queen. God, that's satisfying. As if that wasn't enough, the story complements the game to its very core, and it has a pleasantly deep story that you'll likely need to sit on for a while before fully grasping it, including segments that are literally just PT in the middle of the game. Like, it's literally just a house in the middle of this alien planet, and you just play PT for about 10 minutes, and then you go back to the game. Rounding out this whole package, the soundtrack is awesome, and the sound design is amazing. I would argue some of the best sound design that I've seen in games, period. The general audio fidelity for the game is high quality all around, whether it comes to the sounds of the guns, the ambient noise of the alien planet, the sounds of the creatures that attack you. All of it is just a great concert of just abstract craziness that fits some of the more Lovecraftian themes that the game goes into in its later segments. Sound design actually plays a surprisingly crucial role in regards to how the game feels, and I mean that in regards to the haptics feature of vibration in the DualSense controller for PS5. I'm not an engineer or anything relating to an engineer, so take this with a grain of salt. But my understanding of the technology in this is that rather than having actuators that spin around in order to replicate vibration like in old controllers, you actually have something that is going to push the controller based on a sound profile as opposed to a simple binary on-off feature. What this means is you put a sound into the controller, it replicates it through a motor instead of a speaker, and well, you essentially get a vibration that's going to perfectly match the intensity and pattern of any sound you put into it. Lo and behold, put in sounds that are complementary to the sounds of the weapons that you are using, and you have fantastically detailed vibration features. There's an entire article that is present on the PlayStation website breaking down how the sound engineers incorporated that into the vibration feature. Definitely check it out if you have the time. It is a fascinating read if you're into that techie shit. Now, regarding the criticisms I mentioned before, one thing that has been said all abound in the gaming journalism industry regarding this game in particular is that it needs a save feature, that it needs a checkpoint feature. You have all the big names and publications that are talking about this, everywhere from Polygon, Game Rant, The Gamer, Kotaku. All of them have some article mentioning something to the effect of a lack of a save feature or a checkpoint, and how it is a huge detriment to the game. The only publication that seemingly did not publish something in this favor and actually spoke against it was Games Radar, who typically are in lockstep with these people, so good on ya. And I should make it clear that this isn't simply a matter of some people saying the game wasn't to my taste because of this feature. They are outright saying that it must be added, to the point of them saying that it disrespects the player's time because it is not included in the game. And Polygon mentioning that the players are debating if the game needs a save feature, whereas for the most part the community is pretty much in agreement that it doesn't. A core reason why these people have no idea what they're talking about is, simply put, the genre that the game is in. It is a roguelite. It is in a genre where one of the key features is permadeath. That's it. You cannot list this as a detriment for this game when it is integral to the genre and is present in many other well-acclaimed titles within said genre. Risk of Rain, Binding of Isaac, Dead Cells, Hades, Enter the Gungeon, Crypt of the Necrodancer. None of them have traditional checkpoints or saves. All of them have progress. And that is what is important in these games. Making progress, not making checkpoints. And truth be told, Returnal is much more forgiving than your typical roguelite, and you can actually skip entire bosses and stages once you get the Metroid-style mobility upgrades that they present to you. Consider that the entire purpose of the game, Returnal, as its namesake, is for the purpose of dying and going back to the beginning. It is an integral part of its identity, and not having the risk of losing your progress goes against that core concepts. And the developers have even mentioned that they're looking into ways to implement a save or a checkpoint feature in response to this backlash, but none have been added, and they say they have no idea what it would look like, but they're looking into it. Which is probably a nice way of saying, it's not happening, please go away. And here's the thing, you don't have to like games that have that aspect of permanent death or starting over from the beginning. It's not everyone's cup of tea. But that's okay in isolation when you're talking about whether or not you like a game. But they are saying that the game is bad because of it, or they are specifically saying that the devs need to add in this feature despite it being against their wishes, and that's not fucking cool. So keep that in mind when you're considering whether or not to play the game or get it going forward. That being said, I understand that as of the writing of this video, only 30 people in the entire northern hemisphere of the Earth actually have a PS5, so it may be hard to purchase a game for a console that you do not have access to. But if at some distant day in the future you happen to find yourself in the possession of a PS5 or in a PC once they eventually port it to PC, in all likelihood, please get it. You're doing yourself a big favor, and I hope you have a great time.